Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're checking out the Minecraft PlayStation 4 edition. This is a edition that is no longer supported, and it was actually the final edition being supported by Mojang until they released Minecraft Bedrock Edition on PlayStation. So I decided, let's go down memory lane a little bit. I'm pretty sure that maybe 50% of the audience will probably have a nostalgia blast during this video, but yeah, let's go ahead and check it out. It was also made by 4J Studios, which they don't make Minecraft anymore. They are actually a content creator in the marketplace now. Now, the thing I liked about PlayStation 4 edition is that you could actually have cheats on the main thing, so you could just go to more options, and then you'd simply be able to get yourselves the host privileges through the game options right here in the settings. So another thing that was cool about this is you could actually go through and choose a texture pack on the main thing and actually use it without buying it as a trial, which I thought was really cool. You couldn't actually save it, unfortunately, but it was still cool nevertheless back in like 2018 or whatever when this was stopped being supported. So let's go to create the new world so I can show you some of the features. Immediately when you spawn into the world, you will be treated with this. You'll actually have splash text popping up telling you how to play the game if you've actually never played the game before. And it seems that the game has forgotten that I've played on this. And also, another thing that's interesting is that you actually only have one big object per world. So for example, you would only have one singular actual woodland mansion, and for example, you would only have one end city per end, meaning that every time you wanted to get a new elytra, you'd have to reset the end and re-kill the ender dragon in order to get yourself multiple eggs and stuff. Another thing that was cool about this is if you press the center button like this, you would actually get host options. So we could actually set it to night, day, throw it on peaceful, and give ourselves creative mode. And that's where the chat would be. You wouldn't actually be able to chat on this edition because there was no chat box. And another thing that's interesting is you'd be able to fly around much faster on this edition. It's quite of an interesting feature because in the older editions you could actually fly around quicker and get around much easier than on Bedrock Edition and Java Edition, which was a really cool little thing back in like 2012. And this is a creative menu. So in the creative menu, you would have many other options. So you'd be able to go through like this. So it's very similar to the Bedrock Edition one, how it's handled, but it is, in my honest opinion, a bit more cleaner and how it's handled. Because, for example, you could simply get yourselves a gold block, for example, place it down, and have it pretty much right here. And here's one of the cool parts. You could just quickly press square and your entire inventory would be emptied. So do that. So let's, for example, get yourself a whole bunch of wood, press square, immediately resets. And that's what I liked about the old edition, because you could simply have a entire inventory. So for example, if you're building a giant mansion and you had way too much wood and stuff on you, you can just press square and it's immediately gone. Another thing I liked is that the way that the blocks were handled, because you'd have music discs in this general area, you would have the potions in this area, the armor, etc. It's very similar to Bedrock Edition. The only thing that I find interesting about this edition that's very different from, say, the Bedrock Edition is that you would actually be able to go faster on minecarts. And to also prove that this is the case, you can actually go by much quicker on minecarts on on console edition than you could on Bedrock. Another thing that's interesting that I don't believe is on Bedrock edition is the weight thing. So For example, if you wanted to say, I don't know, get yourself a minecart, if there was nobody in it, it would go by much slower. And if you were to do it in, let's say, a player, you could go by much quicker. I just think it's much more interesting because it would have more weight put onto the minecart if you were moving much quicker. Another thing that's interesting is that only each world would have only a few of these, like I mentioned, but the world actually wasn't infinite back in the old versions of Minecraft. So if you were to run for a very long time this direction, you would actually reach the edge of the world border, and you'd meet this weird little flat land that tries to merge the regular world with the beyond the border world, which I find extremely interesting, because on Bedrock Edition, the world is infinite, but on Java Edition, the world isn't actually infinite. The PS4 edition's last update was actually the 1.14 edition, which I find extremely interesting, because that means that we would actually have no foxes in here, theoretically. So, if we were to go over here and look, we would actually not find, say, any foxes, or any other things such as a warden or other mobs. Another thing that's interesting is that the end and the nether are actually different. Not the end, but the nether. So if we were to actually go and find ourselves an obsidian, which is right here, then you get yourselves quickly a flint and steel and build yourselves a nether portal, you would see this. This was actually back when the nether was actually completely unupdated, meaning that the nether was actually a lot more dangerous than it is now, meaning that in order to get around the nether, you'd actually have to be extremely careful, because there would be no piglins. Now, it was much easier to traverse through the main nether, but it was a lot harder because you'd have to deal with, say, ghasts and other types of mobs, like piglins. And also, piglins looked very different. Also, rip headphone users, because for some reason that was loud. I tried turning it down in the audio settings, but it didn't really help. But another thing that's interesting is if you were to actually go over here and look for the piglin, which I'm having a hard time finding. There we go. The zombie piglin, you'd actually have a different type of thing. And also another thing that's interesting is that you couldn't actually spawn monsters in peaceful mode. You can do this on Bedrock Edition, but it would actually tell you. So you could actually do it quite easy in order to figure out if you were on easy or on survival or on easy on peaceful mode. And since we're on easy mode, it's a lot easier to get in the general thing of it. Another thing that's interesting is the combat. The combat's actually different on the console edition because you could just simply hold down the button and just pretty much click forever. So, if we were to line up a couple piglins here, you could just simply do this. Another thing that's interesting is that there is this weird 1.19 slash, or not 1.19, 1.9 slash 1.12 combat update. So, what was strange about this is in 1.12, I believe, shields were added. And shields work very differently on here because when you crouch, it still does it like on Bedrock Edition, but there would be really no point in having shields because there was no cooldown in the old versions of Minecraft when trying to click. Another thing that was different was the music, because back in the old edition of Minecraft, in creative mode, the survival and creative mode would have two separate music, meaning that CG418, I believe his name is, ended up recording two completely different versions of music. So you would have this song playing in the background for creative mode, and you'd say have other normal Minecraft music such as Mice on Venus and other types of music on the Minecraft survival mode in order to be able to play the game. So you know there is no way to actually get the survival music in creative mode. But I still think it's quite interesting because you could actually have two separate different types of music. I feel like, in my honest opinion though, the creative mode music was quite headache making because in the creative mode the music was a little bit more annoying. Another thing that you'd get on creative, or not creative, on console edition is the loading of chunks. Because of how quickly the chunks used to try to load, the chunks would actually load a lot slower than, say, on Bedrock edition. Because the world would be trying to format and it would actually be running on Minecraft's old render engine, because Minecraft now runs in the Render Dragon, and on the old versions it would actually not run on the Render Dragon, and it would actually run on something else completely, which I don't actually remember the name of right now, but I still find it extremely interesting. Another thing that was interesting about the old version of Minecraft is that the Wither actually had less health, and it was actually a lot easier to kill, say, on Bedrock Edition, because on Bedrock Edition, the health of the Wither actually has twice as much health, say, as if you were going to kill it on the Java Edition. After a couple minutes of getting soul sand, you can actually create the Wither. And the Wither on here actually doesn't have as much health as, say, the Wither on Java Edition, because it is actually a lot easier to kill the Wither on the Legacy Console Edition than it is on Bedrock Edition, because the Bedrock Edition actually has much more health. So let me go ahead and kill the Wither real quick. Another thing that's interesting is actually when you mine, you don't actually have deep dark, so if we were to mine down very quickly, we would actually reach bedrock and the better part under the world. Now, I'm not going to actually keep on mining to get to the bottom of the world, but once again, I find it extremely interesting that there is no deep slate all the way back in this old version of Minecraft. But ultimately, I feel like in this version of Minecraft, it had a little bit more effort put into it than Bedrock Edition, because I'm actually not naming a couple other things, because in this old version of Minecraft, if we were to exit the game, you actually had a separate mini-games category, and you could only play Battle, Tumble, and Glide. I still think the Legacy Edition is probably my favorite version of the game, because there was just so much effort and love put into this version of the game. You could generally tell that 4J actually cared a lot about this version of Minecraft. But yeah, that is today's video, and if you guys enjoyed today's video, of course, subscribe and leave a comment saying that if you played this version of Minecraft or not. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.